Tonight we have App State baseball coverage, college basketball news, and an interview with some athletic trainers, all right here on Sports Bar. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Travis Stanley alongside Braxton Critcher, and we welcome you again to this latest episode of Sports Bar. Let's start off with the latest on Mountaineer sports. Our women's team took on the University of Louisiana Lafayette. It was a stunning game where the Lady Mountaineers fought hard to get the W, but could not stop the Ragin' Cajuns on offense. With 6.5 minutes left in the game, a fight broke out. This left the Mountaineers with one substitution after Murray and Bria Carter were ejected from the game. Two players from U of L were also sent off. After the ejections were announced, the Mountaineers tried to come back, cutting within 3 of the Cajuns. Soon, however, Ashley Bassett-Smith fouled out of the game, leaving the Mountaineers with no substitutions. This proved to be too much for the Mountaineers as they fell to the Cajuns. The Apps rebounded, however, this Saturday with a win over ULM. The Warhawks came into this game with the worst record in conference, and it showed against the Mountaineers. ULM was never able to climb out of a first quarter hole and lost the match with Appalachian 79-61.
After coming out of last week's season opening tournament, the App State baseball team swept Gardner-Webb over the weekend. This is the first time Black and Gold has a series sweep on the road in 4 years, and it comes for a team with a new coaching staff headed in the right direction. In yesterday's 5-1 win over the Running Bulldogs to complete the sweep, Mountaineers pitchers like Luke Watts, Will Herman, and Matt Brill struck out a combined 11 batters on just 118 pitches. The game was close up into the final 2 innings when a Will Herman single drove in Tyler Stroop, who doubled to left center. Then Caleb Grubb scored on a Connor Leonard groundout, and Matt Vernon tacked on another run later in the inning. Grubbs had 2 hits in yesterday's game to extend a hit streak that has continued in every single game so far this season. The Mountaineers are now 4-3 on the season and will play at 5th-ranked South Carolina this Tuesday at 4 p.m. The Gamecocks are now one of the most polished teams in the country and will be the biggest test for head coach Kermit Smith and his squad until they play number 13 UL Lafayette on March the 17th through the 19th. South Carolina returns a bevy of players from last year's conference championship team. They boast one of, if not the best pitching staffs in the college game today. So find out how your Mountaineers fare against the Gamecocks on Tuesday evening. You can find that game broadcast on the SEC Network at 4 p.m. We are now going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we've got college basketball news and Jack and Sam's Corner. Stay with us.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
Welcome back to Sports Bar. The final week of the college basketball season has arrived, and while your App State Mountaineers will be playing tonight against UL Lafayette, there are a few storylines to keep up with on the national scale. Number 5 UNC will be on the road tonight against number 23 Virginia, as the Tar Heels will clinch a 2nd straight ACC regular season title with a win. Florida State, Louisville, and Notre Dame can all tie with the Heels if North Carolina loses its final 2 games and those teams win theirs. Those 3 second-place teams will rely on the Cavaliers to win tonight after they lost to the Tar Heels last Saturday by 24. Another rematch this week in the ACC will be number 17 Duke and UNC, only this one will have much more hype if tonight's game with the Tar Heels goes the way of Virginia. The game will be the final game in the ACC regular season when it tips off Saturday at 8:15 in Chapel Hill. Don't miss out on the next game between the two rivals. In news outside the ACC, Kansas is the new #1 team in the country today after Gonzaga lost in their final regular season game on Saturday to BYU. Kansas is fresh off clinching the Big 12 regular season title for now the 13th consecutive season. With this week wrapping things up in college basketball's regular season with the conference tournament yet to come, the #1 seeds in the next month's tournament are still up for grab. The madness begins in just a few days, so be sure to stay up to date on all our Facebook page news with the latest updates.
Today marks this season's debut of Mountaineer Spotlight, where we shine the light per se on some of the people who work in behind the scenes in athletics. In this week's segment, Charlie Montero sat down with Jenna Donovan and Elay St. Onge. They are two athletic trainers and App State students who work with our Mountaineer teams. For more on that, we now go to Charlie with more. Take it away, Charlie.
Hi, I'm Charlie Montero for Sports Bar. Today, we thought we would sit down and talk to a couple of people involved in Mountaineer sports. But they're not athletes, they're athletic trainers. We're here with Jenna Donovan and Elena St. Onge. Hi, guys.
Hey.
So usually on the show, we always talk about the people who play sports and other players like that. But today, we want to learn more about you guys. So would you mind telling me about your responsibilities?
Yeah, so we're athletic training students in the athletic training education program here at App. And so day to day, we go to class and then we have certain responsibilities with a team that we're assigned with. And it rotates every semester, but whichever sport we're with, we do different things.
We work through the prevention and evaluation. We also help diagnose and treat and rehabilitate all injuries. So we kind of work on the front end and the back end of things should anything happen, God forbid. But it's a great experience to learn. And like she said, we go from classes to different sports, and it's fun.
And what time does your day usually start off at?
It depends. It depends on what sport you're with. There are some mornings when my alarm is set for 4:30 a.m. And there's some times when I can sleep until 8. Sleep until 8, yeah.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, for me, it's pretty much the same thing. It just depends on what sport you're with and what they've got planned that day. Monday, I woke up at 5:30 for a 6 o'clock conditioning or something like that. So it just really depends. Every day changes.
And when you're waking up so early in the morning, like when we say worth it, do you have a favorite memory or something?
I mean, I think just experiencing the wins with the team and even the losses, after you spend a while with them, you can start to feel those, the wins feel great, the losses, they're not so great. But I would say my favorite memory that keeps me going and reminded me why I loved athletic training was last semester. I was with women's soccer, and we had a game against South Alabama, who was like our rivals, and we ended up winning in double overtime. And just the joy that those girls, were feeling on the field, it was overwhelming. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Part as a team.
Yeah.
For me, just honestly getting to see the athletes and getting to see them improve, especially if they do have injuries, getting to work with them. It's that moment when they finally get it and when they can finally go back to play, and their excitement's just also really incredible. And then my favorite memory was at the first Camellia Bowl. I worked with the football team not this past fall, but the fall before that, and so I got to be on the field when we won. And it was really tough because in the beginning of the game, they were getting their hopes down, they were just getting beat up, and there were somebody, I can't remember who, they were just on the sidelines pumping them up, trying to get them going, and then eventually we won, and it was just an incredible game and time to experience it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I imagine with the good times also come bad times. Do you ever have any hectic moments when a player comes off the field screaming and they need help? How does that process work?
Yeah, so I guess just from an emotional standpoint, you feel the highest of the highs, but you can also be a part of the lowest of the lows, like I've said. And we kind of deal with a little bit of the emotional aspect too, because the players, they kind of confide in us sometimes, so you kind of help them deal with those losses and everything.
And do you ever have any issues juggling schoolwork with the hours you have to do for athletic training?
Yeah, so I would say that one of the hardest things about athletic training is prioritizing our time, just because we are both taking 18 hours and then we go to our clinicals afterwards, and then of course have to study and everything. It is hard to balance, but you get the hang of it after a
If you're
semester.
starting here at 4:30 in the morning, you have all the time in the world.
Oh
I guess.
yeah, you have the whole day ahead of you.
No problem.
Yeah, it's just such a long day. You have to prioritize your time. And if you get lucky and you have a free afternoon, you can get to go out in the parkway or go have some fun with some friends.
Or
so.
take a nap.
Or take a nap. You
Yeah,
know, sleep
probably
is
the best
important when you are getting up at 4:30 in the
Yeah.
morning. So.
And do you guys have any advice for people who are graduating from high school and they want to go into college and start athletic training? Maybe like any extracurricular activities or something like that?
I would say you should have a passion for working with people, because that's a big thing that we do, and also be adaptable
Yeah.
to the environment, because it's a
Flexible.
day-to-day, basis of what's happening, and just have a hard work ethic.
Definitely agree with the hard work ethic and be a little bit flexible. I have a tendency to like to control things, and so the adaptability is something I had to get used to, because I never really I like to know a schedule, but the schedule could be something on Monday and it's going to change the morning of on Tuesday, and it's like, well, what am I going to do now? And you just play it by ear, and it's all going to work out at the end. It's nothing
Gotta roll
you
with
can't.
it,
It's nothing you can't handle. So.
And finally, do you guys have any plans for the future after you graduate?
At this point, I hope to pursue med school. That's kind of the
Yeah.
route I'm going, yeah.
I would really like the opportunity to work for a Division I football team.
Really?
Football is kind of my thing, and I would prefer a GA position so I can go ahead and get my master's, but not quite sure what that all entails yet. So.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Jenna and Elena. Back to you guys.
It's always interesting to see the stories of the people who do so much work for our athletics here on campus. Their work is not always noticed, but what is done behind the scenes makes all the difference for those in front of the camera. And now for more on what's going on in the world of sports, here's Jack and Sam.
Thank you, Travis, and welcome this week to another episode of Jack and Sam's Corner. I'm joined today with Sam Brown, my esteemed colleague. And Sam, we're going to get started today talking about the MLB. There's a big rule change now. Instead of a pitcher having to pitch 4 balls to indicate an intentional walk, the manager will just have to give a signal. Personally, I think it'll change. Obviously, it'll make the game a little bit faster. They're trying to make baseball a quicker game, trying to make it more fun, more enjoyable for the younger generation. I think it will speed the game up, but I don't think it's really that big of a difference. What do you think?
Well, I think what you're seeing is baseball. They've been working at it for some time now. Baseball's moving into the modern era with the replay system that they put in play a couple years back, and now this. They, like you said, they're trying to speed the game up, and it is overdue, the speeding of the game. If you look at where baseball came from, it was one of the first leisure activities, so people didn't mind spending 4 or 5 hours at the ballpark. But with today's run and gun style, I think that a 3.5-hour baseball game, and I'll admit I'm a huge baseball fan, a 3.5-hour baseball game can sometimes be kind of arduous to sit there and watch to its entirety. So I think, and it's a small part, this will maybe only add up to, I don't know, a minute, maybe 2 minutes by the end of the game. You don't see that many intentional walks anyway, but I think you're really seeing an initiative to speed the game up and make it something fun to watch.
Well, yeah, it comes on the heels of other rule changes such as replay. There's a timer now in between when a pitcher can pitch.
Right.
It obviously MLB is taking the steps towards becoming a faster league and a faster paced game for those that want to watch it, so we don't spend 4 hours at a ballpark. But there are a lot of people that are really upset by these rule changes. A lot of the traditionalists of baseball say that they're taking out from the game. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think, I don't know necessarily that I want to see intentional walks taken out of the game. I think it's a great play, both strategically and maybe even in the mind game department. I mean, you saw last year Bryce Harper, he was having an amazing season, and then he takes one trip to Chicago, and Joe Madden decides to intentionally walk him. I want to say over the 4-game series, I think he only got maybe 4 at-bats where he actually was able to swing the bat, and it just derailed his entire season. So the intentional walk is definitely a great aspect of the game, but what I find troubling about it is once you take out intentional walks and you're really trying to push the game further, where does the buck stop? I mean, there have been people who have suggested automated strike zones, raising the strike zones, doing away with umpires entirely, and I think that'd be a big mistake because a huge portion of a baseball game is the human element, especially missing calls.
Exactly.
You know, perfect games have been decided by players who were entirely out, but the umpire said they were safe. So, you know, I think the human element definitely needs to be intact as long as possible for baseball to continue to flourish.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you're talking about with Bryce Harper there. He's really the one leading the charge on this make baseball fun again. That's been his slogan for the past couple seasons. Now, he didn't have a great season last year. I mean, it was average by Bryce Harper standards, but maybe he'll come back this year again. He's trying to make the game a lot more fun for the younger generation. We're going to step away from baseball real quick. We're going to step into the NBA. Big things happened, the All-Star break, and along with the All-Star break came the trade deadline. And obviously there are a couple big moves. The biggest one obviously being DeMarcus Cousins going from the Kings to the Pelicans. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, on paper, it was a great deal. It was a steal for the Pelicans, and I mean, the only word for it really is a brain fart on the Kings' part. But on the court, it hasn't really worked out so far. He's given them the numbers they want, but they have no production from anybody else but Anthony Davis. I think they're 0-3 since getting DeMarcus Cousins. So there might be a learning curve there. We might just have to wait it out a little while, see if they can add one more piece to the puzzle and try and make a run for that 8th spot in the West. But it was a great trade, and even if things don't pan out with DeMarcus Cousins, they can use him as maybe trade fodder later on.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people were saying that this was going to be a powerful team now. Some people even saying, does this make the Pelicans one of the top 3 teams in the West? I don't think that it does, because I agree with you in the point that they need one other piece, but I think it does make them a little bit better than other teams that are fighting for that 8, 7, 6 spot. I think that the Pelicans still have a good chance of running it to getting to the 8th spot. I also don't think the Kings made the worst trade possible. They really, the owner kind of pushed it in that he didn't want DeMarcus in Sacramento anymore. He was tired of dealing with him. He'd had a lot of problems with not only the coaching staff but also the upper management. But also, you know, they got Buddy Hield, a nice young player who they believe could be, in the quote from the general manager, the next Steph Curry-like player.
He is coming from an Oklahoma fan right here. He knows when to turn it on. It's just a matter of turning it on and keeping it on when it comes to that 3 ball.
Yeah, and he hasn't been terrible in his first couple games. No, he hasn't been
terrible, but
he's been better than others. But they got a couple good, solid players. Their GM, Vlad Divac, who was a great player for a couple years, says that if this deal does not turn out better for Sacramento, if Sacramento's not better from this deal in 2 years, that he will resign. So that's a pretty lofty, I guess, bet or gamble on his part, because there's a very good chance that it won't work out. But I think you're right in saying that the Pelicans definitely came out on the better deal, coming up with one of the best big men in the game. Probably the best big man.
In my opinion.
He's pretty close. I still think, you know.
You've got the 2 best big men in the league, in my opinion.
Definitely. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns, is making a good run for being one of the better big men in the league, and I think, you know, given 2 or 3 years, he'll be right up there with him.
Sure.
And there are a lot of other, you know, good young guys that are going to be making a run for that too. Speaking of young, good big men, the Mavs made a trade with the Philadelphia 76ers, who have 3 young, good centers on the rosters, or did at least, and they traded away Nerlens Noel. A lot of people are saying that you know, Joel Embiid's hurt right now. He has a slight meniscus tear. And then Jahlil Okafor was really the one that people thought was going to get traded away. They thought they were going to keep Nerlens because he tends to work better with Jahlil. But they ended up trading him away for Andrew Bogut, and now they're talking about releasing Andrew Bogut. So I think that was a great deal for the Mavs. They unloaded. I'd definitely put them. I'd put the Pelicans here as number 1, and I definitely put the Mavs right underneath the Pelicans as far as winning the trade deadline. They got a good young center who has shown really great production, has been one of the best centers when he's healthy, and I think he'll really flourish with Dallas here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I didn't mind the trade. I'm not a huge Nerlens Noel fan. I think he might be overhyped to a certain extent, but I do think definitely that the Mavericks got the better end of the deal. And like you said, Andrew Bogut might be going to get dropped by the Sixers, but Cavs are looking for a couple more pieces to their puzzle to make that run at maybe possibly repeating. And I've heard that Andrew Bogut is a prime target for them, because LeBron has been very vocal. He needs that playmaker. And with Kevin Love out for who knows how long, Andrew Bogut could definitely be somebody that the Cavs could go to.
Yeah, they're just looking for another piece to step in,
Right.
to come off the bench and really help down low.
Right.
So going on from the NBA, we're going to get into a topic now, talking about Tiger Woods.
Right.
Tiger Woods has pulled himself out of another tournament, citing medical issues. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's time to hang up the golf cleats, put the golf bag away until it's time for you to teach your kid or grandson, whatever it is. I think we have seen the rise and fall of Tiger Woods as is. Personally, I think that if he doesn't play the Masters this year, it's definitely the end for him. He's just not been the same person since the back problems and everything in his home life went up in flames. And you can't blame him to a certain extent. That was a big thing in his life. I mean, I'm in no way advocating what he did, but things like that happen to people, and they're never the same, especially on the playing field. And Tiger, I think, is fooling himself and has fooled himself for far too long about a possible comeback and winning majors again. I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, his back gave out, and I think not only is it his physical thing, but it's just his mental game is gone, I think.
Yeah.
Back in his day, Tiger was probably one of the mentally strongest players of his time. Definitely, I would say.
I mean, he comes out and he shanks a couple drives. His back hurts again, and he's withdrawn before the second round
I think
starts.
it's definitely a mental thing, and you can definitely, if you go back and watch the tournaments he has played recently, it definitely seems like he's kind of lost that edge.
Yeah.
He's lost the eye of the Tiger, pretty much.
That was terrible. That was awful. On the opposite end of the spectrum, though, Phil Mickelson playing some of his best golf in a couple years now. Where do you see him ending?
I mean, we could always see old Lefty come out, win another Masters, and then right off into the sunset. That's what I would like to see.
Well, that's personally what I think is going to happen. If he ever wins another major, he's just going to say, see you later.
That arthritis is going to kick him finally.
That happens
so that'll come in.
the best of them.
Yeah.
And Phil is one of the best of them.
Phil is one of the
I'll
best
say
of them,
that
I would
much.
agree.
Any final thoughts?
No. You?
No.
No. Well, that's all we have this week for Sam and Jack's Corner. Back to you, Travis.
That is all the time we have this week, but thanks again for joining us. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for more updates on all things sports. For some of the topics that we did not get to tonight, check out our Facebook page for more articles that you can read about local sports, professional sports, and more, written by our own App students. This has been Sports Bar. Tune in next week, same time, same place. You know what it is. It's Sports Bar. For Travis Stanley, and for everyone else behind the scenes, I'm Braxton Critcher. Good night.